Cassie was a die-hard Tupac fan. Cassie loved her some Tupac. Somebody close told me that she was a die-hard Tupac fan. And because I believe that Puff may have found that out or known that, he put that against that girl. And he treated her like that.
I have proved things that I can say that will back up my claim, but this is not for the world to know about.
What you gotta say now? You ain't got to say when you put your girl on the snap. Baby, yo babe. I mean, shit getting weird. Come on, baby, it's hot outside. You wrapped up in that blanket. Let's go jog on the beach.
I believe that he hated Pac that much to take it out on that little girl.
Let's keep it all the way real. Diddy never liked Tupac, not even a little bit. That wasn't just industry competition, that was straight up war. From the moment Pac called him out, from the bad boy versus death row tension, to the East Coast West Coast beef that turned deadly, Diddy had serious issues with Tupac. He saw him as a threat, not just musically, but personally. So imagine the rage when Diddy found out that his own girlfriend, Cassie, actually admired Tupac. She loved his energy, his passion, his truth, and that didn't sit right with a man like Diddy. According to former bodyguard Gene Deal, this wasn't just a minor insecurity. It triggered deep jealousy and resentment in Diddy. Because to him, it wasn't just about another man, it was about Tupac, the one man he couldn't control, couldn't compete with, and could never forget. That's when things turned dark. What should have been a relationship built on love turned into something else entirely, something toxic. Gene Deal says Diddy used that jealousy as fuel to punish Cassie. The control, the manipulation, the cold silence 1 minute, and explosive anger the next. It all started making sense. It wasn't just about her. It was about his ego, his image, and most of all, his long-standing hatred for Tupac. Diddy couldn't touch Pac, but he could take it out on the woman who loved him. And that's exactly what he did. Now, Gene's pulling the curtain back on the dark side of Diddy's empire. The way he treated Cassie wasn't random. It was calculated, emotional warfare disguised as love, powered by obsession, insecurity, and a deep-rooted rivalry that outlived Tupac himself. So if you ever wondered why Cassie seemed trapped in that relationship, why things always felt off, this might just be the missing piece. Let's get into the full story. And that story, it gets even deeper when Gene Deal starts breaking it all down. See, this isn't just about jealousy over Tupac or even Cassie. It's about power, control, and the dangerous empire Diddy built around himself to protect his ego at all costs. Gene isn't pulling any punches. He lays it out plain. Diddy made sure he was never held accountable. Not by law, not by the people around him, not by anyone on his payroll. When Puff was back in New York, moving through the city with actual officers, guys from NYPD, state parole, corrections, he kept himself in check. He didn't act reckless around them because they were professionals. They had careers, pensions, and most importantly, they were mandated reporters. They weren't about to lose their futures just to cover up for his wild behavior. But once Puff swapped them out for street dudes, guys who didn't have benefits, job security, or anything close to a backup plan, the game changed. Gene names them D-Rock, Paul, Roger Barnes. These weren't seasoned security professionals. These were men from the block who needed the job. And that's exactly why Diddy picked them. He knew they weren't going to say a word when he started acting out. He knew they weren't going to step in when he was doing crazy shit, because they had families to feed, rent to pay, and no other options. If Puff fired them, they weren't going to land another high-profile job in the industry. They'd be bouncing at some club, scraping by, so they let it all slide. The outbursts, the tantrums, the way he treated people behind closed doors. They saw it all and said nothing, because silence was part of the paycheck. This is where Cassie's nightmare comes into focus. Because when you understand the environment Diddy built, where no one could stop him, no one dared question him, you start to understand how a woman like Cassie, young, talented, and full of potential, could be slowly broken down over the years. And then you add in the Tupac factor. That's when the picture gets even uglier. Gene makes it clear, Puffy's beef with Pac wasn't just some hip-hop rivalry. It was personal, deep. He couldn't stand Pac, not just for the music, but for what he represented. Tupac was fearless, real, raw. He was everything Diddy pretended to be. And when Cassie expressed admiration for that, Whether it was in words, energy, or just in the way she carried herself, Puff took it as a threat. He didn't just feel jealousy, he felt disrespected, embarrassed, like his own woman had chosen his enemy. And in his world, that wasn't just betrayal, it was war. So he made her pay for it. Not in one moment, not in one big blowout, but over time, with manipulation, with silence, with control, maybe even worse. According to Gene, Puff didn't just have a short temper, he had a system, a setup. He designed the world around him to let him act without consequence. So when Cassie fell out of line, in his eyes, there was no one to stop him from doing whatever he wanted. No one to say, chill out. No one to pull him back, because everyone around him had already sold their silence to keep their spot. And Gene, he saw the writing on the wall. That's why he walked away. When Puff tried to get him to leave his career and go full-time for $75,000 a year, Gene laughed in his face. He knew better. He knew that working full-time for Puff wasn't protection, it was slavery. He knew once you depended on Puff, he owned you. Your time, your silence, your morals, and Gene wasn't about to give that up. But the ones who stayed, they gave it all, and they watched it all happen. They watched Cassie suffer. They watched Puff lose himself in the power, and they said nothing. Now, Gene is speaking up, and he's not holding back, because too many people have been silent for too long. This story isn't just about jealousy or heartbreak. It's about how power, money, and ego can twist a person into something unrecognizable. It's about a man who built a world where he was untouchable, and a woman who got caught in the storm. And at the center of it all, a dead legend, a silent love, and a deep, dangerous grudge that still echoes decades later. This is She Loved Tupac. He was jealous. And Gene Deal is here to tell you exactly how deep it really goes. And just when you thought it couldn't get any darker, Gene Deal drops the part that ties it all together. The part that exposes why Cassie caught the absolute worst of Diddy's rage. Why, out of all the women he's been with, she was the one he publicly humiliated, emotionally tormented, and allegedly beat while his own security stood around doing nothing. Gene says what most people wouldn't dare say. Diddy wasn't just mad, he was obsessed. Obsessed with control, obsessed with perception, and, maybe most disturbingly, obsessed with Tupac Shakur. Now this is where things take a twisted turn. Gene says it straight up. Cassie was a die-hard Tupac fan. Yeah, she was young, but that didn't matter. She loved his music, his message, his energy. She had posters, she played his songs, and she carried that vibe with her. That didn't sit well with Diddy, not even a little bit. Because remember, Diddy didn't just dislike Tupac, he hated him. He felt humiliated by him, haunted by him. Tupac symbolized everything Diddy wanted to be, but couldn't. Raw, fearless, respected on the streets and in the studio. And even in death, Pac had a stronger hold on culture than Diddy ever could. That ate away at him. So when Cassie, his girlfriend, the woman he was supposed to own, admire, and protect, when she turned out to be a fan of Tupac, that wasn't just a turnoff. That was war. That was betrayal in Diddy's paranoid mind. According to Gene, that might be the very reason Cassie became his target, because loving Pac, even posthumously, was an act of defiance in Puff's world. It was a reminder that no matter how rich he got, how many awards he won, or how many people he controlled, he'd never be Pac. And instead of confronting that pain, he took it out on the easiest target, the woman who couldn't fight back. Gene even says it himself. I know people are gonna think this sounds crazy, but when you look at the pattern, it doesn't seem crazy at all. He didn't treat Sarah Chapman like that. He didn't do those freakouts, as Gene called them, with Kim Porter either.
I really believe that. And I know people gonna be like, yo, Gene, that's crazy. Yo, Kim Porter loved Pac too. Sarah Chapman loved Pac too. So I don't understand why he didn't do Sarah like that. But Sarah was a very, very smart girl. She was highly intelligent. So I know he believed that he probably couldn't have got away with doing like that with Sarah. You know what I'm saying? He couldn't do that to Sarah and get away with it. Rough her up a little bit, nah, but beat her and do the freak-offs like that, nah, I don't believe he could do Sarah like that. But you know, she dated Tupac before him. So I believe that she did that with Cassie, not only because he knew he could get away with it, and I think it had something to do with that, he didn't like the fact that she liked Tupac. And that's crazy. It's crazy he didn't believe that and even think that. that was brought to my attention. Because you know, and everybody know, and in Kirk Burrows' lawsuit, he states how obsessed Puff was with Tupac. Taking people budgets and buying shirts and Versace shirts that Tupac had on. Every girl, every woman that he dated, he was trying to date or did date. At his Grammy speech, said the same words that Tupac had said out of his mouth before. And I just believe his obsession, and he was probably just as obsessed with Pac, probably more than as much as Cassie liked him. His obsession with Pac, and knowing that she loved Pac, even though she was too young to even know. But she had a love for his music. Just like a lot of people that's young now today, got a love for Pac and big music, and they wasn't even around at the time, at the height of their music, at the height of their career.
Because, Gene says, Sarah was smart, she was sharp, she wouldn't tolerate that kind of madness. Puff knew he couldn't get away with it. But Cassie, young, isolated, emotionally dependent on him, surrounded by security who answered to him, she was vulnerable, and he knew it. He exploited that. Gene also broke down how the bad boy security team didn't step in when Puff was allegedly beating Cassie. They just watched, and it was only when outside security, people not on Diddy's direct payroll, intervened that anything was done. That should have been the red flag for everyone watching. But inside Diddy's world, silence wasn't just common, it was enforced. His people wouldn't risk their paychecks, and that meant Cassie had no safety net. She was alone in the middle of a storm. And here's the most disturbing part. Gene believes Diddy wasn't just jealous of Cassie's love for Tupac, he was obsessed with Pac himself. Gene talks about Puff stealing budgets to buy the same Versace shirts Pac wore, quoting Pac during award speeches, even chasing after the same women Pac had once dated. This wasn't a rivalry. It was an unhealthy fixation, and when he saw even a hint of that same love in Cassie, it triggered something dark in him, something violent, something vindictive. It's wild to hear, but the pieces start lining up. In Kirk Burrows' lawsuit, there are claims that point to this same obsession. Stories about Puffy's fixation with recreating Tupac's image, chasing his legacy, and even trying to be him. So if Cassie really was in love with the idea of Pac, his energy, his soul, his voice, then in Puff's mind, she was sleeping with the enemy. And he punished her for it. Gene doesn't sugarcoat it, he says it clearly. I believe he hated Pac that much to take it out on that little girl. And when you hear it in Gene's voice, the regret, the weight of it, you believe him. Because what he's describing isn't just jealousy or insecurity, it's deep psychological warfare. Diddy couldn't beat Pac when he was alive. And even in death, he still couldn't escape his shadow. So he took out all that pain and rage on someone who couldn't fight back, someone who just loved the wrong rapper. That's the tragic heart of this story. This wasn't just a toxic relationship. This was a man using his power, his paranoia, and his twisted obsession to destroy a woman who simply admired the wrong icon. And now, after years of silence, Gene Deal is exposing the truth. Not for clicks, not for clout, but because somebody has to say it out loud. Cassie didn't deserve what she went through, and the industry needs to stop pretending they didn't know. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. With that, there's even some news of how Puffy, out of his ego and pride, might have ordered a hit on Tupac. Keith D once admitted to getting paid $1 million to get the job done.
On all four of those occasions, there's San Diego, Anaheim, Irvine, and Vegas. Which ones do you actually talk to Puffy?
Yeah, them project dudes will kill your ass 1,500. You know what I'm saying? We went to eat. We was eating. Man, they came and said, he told me in the lobby that he had some Jimmys.
Some what?
Had a Jimmy in that Benz. He had a little secret compartment. Thing popped out. Popped up. Popped out. Yeah.
In the armrest?
Yeah.
And just when you think the public's finally starting to grasp the weight of what Gene Deal's been saying for years, a video resurfaces, and it's as chilling as it is revealing. No audio dramatics, no flashy editing, just raw, unfiltered footage of Diddy doing what so many have alleged behind closed doors, controlling, demeaning, baiting Cassie while she's in one of the most vulnerable states a person could be in. In the video, Cassie is lying on the floor, not on a couch, not in a bed, in a fetal position. and covered with a blanket like someone who's shut down completely. And it doesn't look like rest. It doesn't even resemble sleep. What it looks like is a person who's been mentally or emotionally forced to go down, to lie still, stay still, and shut up. Her body isn't relaxed like someone taking a nap. It's stiff, distant, and wriggling. There's an eerie tension in the way she's lying there, like someone who's given up, resisting, because resistance got her nowhere.
What you gotta say now? You ain't got shit to say. When you put your girl on the snap, baby, yo, babe. I mean, shit getting weird. Come on, baby, it's hot outside. You wrapped up in that blanket. Let's go jog on the beach.
And then there's Diddy, camera in hand, recording her, poking at her like she's an exhibit instead of a human being. He's taunting her, telling her to get up, but it's not said in love. It's not concern. It's bait, the tone, condescending, superior, mocking, makes it clear. This isn't about waking someone up. This is about asserting dominance. He knows she's not asleep. He knows damn well what state she's in, and he wants to humiliate her on camera anyway, whether it's for control, whether it's to document her obedience, or simply to have power over her in yet another way. It's chilling. That video isn't just some random moment caught on a phone. It's a visual representation of everything people like Gene Deal, Cassie herself, and now the broader public have been trying to explain. This wasn't a relationship built on love or even basic respect. It was control from the ground up, emotional, physical, and psychological. And the most terrifying part, you can see how normal this dynamic was for them. She doesn't even react with surprise. She doesn't yell. She doesn't argue. She doesn't beg for space. She just lies there, frozen, like this has happened before, like this is routine. The video hit hard for a lot of people because it made the real. Not hearsay, not rumors, not something you had to imagine or speculate about. It was there, plain as day. The man with all the money, all the power, the cameras, the bodyguards, and the media image, recording a woman who looked emotionally lifeless, baiting her to react so he could feel bigger, and she gave him nothing. Not because she was fine, but because she was done. This clip didn't come from 1996. It's not old tabloid grain. It's modern, raw, digital footage, and it's resurfacing now because people are finally connecting the dots. When you line this up with Gene's words, with the lawsuit Cassie filed and later settled, with the countless other accusations that have piled up over the years, you start to see the full picture. It wasn't just anger. It wasn't just jealousy. It was systematic psychological abuse disguised as a relationship. And Puff made sure he had total control, even down to moments like that one, where she wasn't allowed to simply lie down and breathe in peace. And let's not pretend this was just a bad moment. This was a pattern, a theme. And if that video hadn't leaked, it's just one more moment that would have stayed hidden behind NDAs, security walls, and industry silence. It's proof of what people have been scared to say for years. Diddy wasn't just a demanding partner. He was someone who used power to erase people's autonomy and then dared them to speak about it, knowing no one would believe them. But now, we have more than stories. We have evidence, and the world is finally watching. This wasn't a couple having a rough patch. This wasn't someone playing around with their girlfriend. This was a man recording his control over a woman who looked like she'd already checked out. That's not a relationship. That's emotional imprisonment. And the more that surfaces, the more undeniable it becomes. What Cassie went through wasn't rare, accidental, or misunderstood. It was intentional, calculated, documented. And we're only just starting to see how deep it really went. I mean, have you seen the stuff going on in the trial? And now, the truth isn't just being whispered in back rooms or hinted at in interviews. It's being laid bare in federal court. In a trial that has rocked the entertainment world to its core, the jury is hearing the raw, undeniable receipts, audio recordings of Sean Diddy, Combs himself, sent to a former girlfriend now testifying under the pseudonym Jane, one of the key witnesses for the prosecution. These aren't rumors or secondhand allegations anymore. This is Combs' own voice, played out loud in a courtroom where every word carries weight. Jane's testimony, already harrowing, has now been backed by chilling evidence, voice notes that Combs sent her in 2021 and 2023, laced with aggression, emotional manipulation, and pure contempt. In one exchange from November 2021, Jane tried to explain her pain. She wrote to Combs about how broken she felt after enduring what she called hotel nights, drug-fueled, coercive encounters where, according to prosecutors, Combs and his inner circle used threats, violence, and mind games to force her and others, including Cassie Ventura, into humiliating situations. "I need a breather and a break from you. This doesn't make me feel good at all," she wrote. That's not just someone venting. That's a plea, a cry for space, for air, for basic human dignity. But Combs didn't show concern. He didn't apologize or reflect. Instead, in an audio message now etched into court records, he snapped back, "You're fing nuts. Be sad. Go crazy. Do whatever the F you want." That wasn't a man reaching out in love or remorse. That was cold dismissal, gaslighting, another layer of emotional violence, now preserved forever on tape. This is what Jane, and reportedly Cassie, lived through. It wasn't just about the nights in the hotels. It was about the ongoing psychological torment, the feeling of being trapped in a world built to crush your spirit and strip away your autonomy. Prosecutors are painting a damning picture of a pattern. Combs allegedly orchestrated these so-called freak-offs, where women were expected to perform, submit, and endure, often under the influence of drugs, surrounded by people too afraid or too paid to intervene. And just when it seemed like the abuse couldn't feel more calculated, more transactional, or more chilling, another moment from the trial pulled back the curtain on the depth of control Diddy allegedly wielded over the women in his life. During a tense exchange in 2023, now entered into evidence in federal court, Jane, the prosecution's key witness, tried to draw a boundary. She told Combs that she couldn't take it anymore. Her body had hit a wall. She wasn't just emotionally drained. She was physically at her limit. The so-called hotel nights, the drug-fueled, degrading performances, she says, were orchestrated for Diddy's pleasure, and ego had broken her down completely. And what did Diddy do when confronted with her pain? He didn't console her. He didn't offer compassion. Instead, he made it crystal clear. If she didn't play her role, he'd disappear and take her financial lifeline with him. In an audio message that was played for the jury, he told her, "I'm about to really disappear on you, you feel me?" There was no empathy in that voice, no hesitation. It was a threat, plain and simple. A threat masked as tough love, soaked in manipulation, designed to remind her that he held the power. And then came the kicker, the phrase that echoes the way an abuser turns love into labor. "You better get on your job," not "let's talk," not "how can I help?" Number. It was a directive, an ultimatum. Jane told the court exactly what that meant. Her job was to serve him, to take care of him, to be good to him. That didn't just mean cooking his meals or keeping him company. It meant fulfilling his demands, showing up for his twisted power games, and smiling through the trauma. Meanwhile, his job was to pay for her life. This wasn't a relationship. It was a contract, one where she had to surrender her body and autonomy in exchange for basic security. And when the prosecution asked her what she believed he meant by a rude awakening, Jane didn't hesitate. She knew it wasn't just a metaphor. It was a warning that if she stopped obeying, stopped participating in the freak-offs, stopped showing up on command, everything she depended on would be ripped away. That's what makes this testimony so horrifying. It was all engineered. Diddy wasn't losing his temper in the moment. He was using silence, money, fear, and control like tools, like weapons. And if there was any doubt left about the level of control Diddy allegedly held over Jane, her latest testimony erased it completely. Sitting in that courtroom, under oath, and in front of the jury, she made it clear. This wasn't just emotional abuse or coercion. It was a calculated system of dependency and domination, one that blurred the lines between survival and submission. "I was pretty alarmed by this message," she said, referring to the audio threat where Diddy warned he would disappear on her if she didn't get on her job. Her voice didn't crack from theatrics. It cracked from the weight of truth. "It was just really cold," she added. "It's true that at any moment he can just do that if he wanted to." That wasn't paranoia. That was reality. Because in her world, disappearing didn't just mean ghosting or going silent. It meant being cut off, financially, emotionally, completely. And that's where the next bombshell landed. Jane testified that, beginning in 2023, Diddy started giving her a $10,000 a month allowance, money she used to pay for her home, the roof over her, and her son's heads. This wasn't generosity. This was leverage, control disguised as care. And when she revealed that Diddy still pays her rent to this day, it shook the courtroom, because it wasn't just the past on trial anymore. It was the present. The system he built to keep her tethered to him still exists, but the money was only one layer of the control. What Jane described next was even more disturbing, a window into the physical and mental toll of what Diddy allegedly demanded of her. The hotel nights, she explained, weren't just a few hours of twisted pleasure. They were full-blown marathons of exploitation, often lasting more than 24 hours with no sleep. She said Diddy would give her ecstasy, not as a party drug, but as a tool to keep her awake, to keep her going, to keep her compliant. One hotel night, according to her testimony, lasted over 3 days, 3 straight days, no sleep, high on ecstasy, forced to perform because saying no wasn't an option when your housing, your safety, your child's stability were all tied to one man's mood. Let that sink in. This wasn't a woman partying by choice. This wasn't consensual kink or some high-profile lifestyle gone sideways. This was modern-day psychological and physical captivity dressed up in luxury. Designer chains, a life that looked glamorous on Instagram, but behind closed doors was hell in high definition. The drugs weren't for fun. They were fuel. The money wasn't freedom. It was a leash. And Diddy, according to Jane, held it all in his hands. She didn't just feel trapped. She was trapped. The emotional the threats, the power imbalance. It all operated in a system where saying no came with consequences, where I need a break was met with you're nuts and I don't want to do this, led to you got a rude awakening coming. And now the world is hearing these words, not from tabloids, not from anonymous sources, from the witness stand under penalty of perjury. As the walls close in tighter, Combs' legal team is pulling out every stop in a desperate bid to derail the case. They know the stakes are high. They know Diddy's reputation and freedom are on the line. And so, in classic defense mode, they're trying to throw the prosecution off balance by challenging the very evidence that's shaking the foundation of this entire trial. Recently, Diddy's lawyers filed a bombshell letter asking the judge to declare a mistrial, accusing federal prosecutors of demonstrably false evidence, a serious claim that signals just how frantic the defense has become. At the heart of their complaint, the allegation involving Brianna Bongolan, a longtime friend of Cassie Ventura and a key witness for the prosecution. Bongolan testified that in 2016, Combs allegedly dangled her off the balcony of a 17th floor apartment in Los Angeles, an act of intimidation and violence that sent shockwaves through the case. But now, the defense is calling Bongolan a liar. They're accusing her of perjury, claiming she fabricated the story to strengthen the prosecution's narrative. To back up their challenge, Diddy's team presented hotel receipts that placed Combs in New York between September 24th and 29th, 2016, directly contradicting Bongolan's account of the attack on September 26th in Los Angeles. This is classic courtroom warfare, one side trying to poke holes in the other's credibility to plant seeds of doubt in the jury's mind. But beyond the legal tactics, it also reveals just how cornered and desperate Diddy's defense is becoming. When your back is against the wall, you fight tooth and nail to discredit witnesses, question timelines, and muddy the waters. However, while the defense is throwing everything at the wall to stop the trial in its tracks, the bigger picture remains clear. The prosecution's case isn't just built on one witness or one incident. It's a mountain of evidence, audio messages, testimonies, documented patterns of abuse, and survivor accounts that paints a damning portrait of control, coercion, and exploitation. Diddy's team might be trying to slow the momentum, but the strategy also signals an acknowledgement that the tide is turning, and fast. This mistrial motion is a Hail Mary, a last-ditch attempt to buy time, shake the courtroom's confidence, and maybe even turn the narrative before more explosive evidence surfaces. But in a trial fueled by decades of allegations finally coming to light, no amount of legal smoke and mirrors can erase the truth. And for Diddy, the fight to stop the trial isn't just about clearing his name. It's about stalling the reckoning he and his empire have long tried to avoid. Whether it works or not, the world is watching, and justice is inching closer by the day. So, what do you think? Comment down below and let us know. If you like this video, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be the first to see my next video. I post updates like this every week where I uncover the secrets of your favorite celebrities.